Welcome to the Science of Economics. I am Dr. SAJANI JAYAPRASAD. As stated in the previous video, now we are going to consider the second category. Here, we will go through three elements: colonial rule in India, British policies and their impact on the Indian economy, major features of the Indian economy at the time of independence. Firstly, colonial rule in India. What is colonial rule? The practice of a powerful nation in extending its control over other countries, especially in establishing settlements or exploiting resources, is called colonial rule. Now, let us study the methods of colonialization that took place in India. We know that the British presence in India began through trade. Look at the picture on the screen, the East India Company. What did the East India Company do? How did the East India Company gain control of India? To answer these questions, let's dwell into the history of East India Company. When the Industrial Revolution started, the small states in Europe did not have sufficient raw materials for their industries or markets for their finished goods. These countries started looking for markets in Asia and Africa. England succeeded in controlling trade with India and established the East India Company in 1600s. Gradually, the company expanded its trading network and received great support from the British government. With its help, England was able to extend her territorial frontiers to the Indian subcontinent. During the 19th century, India was composed of many big and small independent states. These states had their own rulers, economy, language, and culture. These states were constantly at war with each other. It was not surprising that they fell an easy prey to the European powers, especially the British. The British started interfering in the political affairs of the Indian rulers. It was the Battle of Plassey, 1757, and Buxar, 1764, which provided the ground for the British success in India. Through these battles, a long era of British political control over India began and lasted for about 200 years. Step by step, the British widened their dominance over India. And by 1858, entire India was under the control of the colonial rule, except for some small holdings occupied by European nations such as Goa and Pondicherry. The British Raj extended over almost all present-day India, Pakistan and Bangladesh. The British Indian Empire and surrounding countries is shown on the screen. The economic policies followed by the colonial government in India were concerned more with the protection and promotion of the economic interest of their home country than the development of the Indian economy. An interesting point to be noted here is that the colonial rule in India corresponded with the process of industrialization in Britain. The British policies brought about a fundamental change in the structure of the Indian economy, transforming the country into a supplier of raw materials and a consumer of finished industrial products from Britain. Thus, under the British colonial rule, the structure of Indian economy changed totally. It became stagnant and deteriorated. Obviously, the colonial government never made any sincere attempt to estimate India's national and per capita income. Although some individual attempts were made to measure such incomes, it yielded conflicting and inconsistent results. Some of the notable estimators were Dadabhai Nauroji, William Digby, Finlay Shiras, V.K.R.V. Rao and R.C. Desai. But it was Rao whose estimate during the colonial period was considered very significant. Most studies found that the country's growth of total output during the first half of the 20th century was less than 2%. Now, let us consider the major policies framed and followed by the colonial government and their impact on the Indian economy. Firstly, converting agriculture sector as a mere supplier of raw materials. The British forced to produce only those agricultural goods which would serve as raw materials for the industries in Britain. As a result, there was a shortage in the production of food grains. This adversely affected the Indian traditional manufacturing sector also. In return of the exports, Britain supplied India with machine-made products. This provided a great threat to the Indian handloom and traditional products. Secondly, exploitative land settlement system. The British carried out a number of land revenue experiments which caused hardship to cultivators. They extracted huge taxes from the farmers to finance their policies and war efforts. But they did nothing to improve the condition of farmers and the agriculture sector. This led to the deterioration of economic condition of the poor farmers. Thirdly, forced commercialization of agriculture. Another major economic impact of the British policies in India was the introduction of a large number of commercial crops such as tea, coffee, indigo, opium, cotton, jute, sugarcane and oilseed. Indian farmers were forced to produce cash crops or commercial crops instead of the food grains. As I stated earlier, the extensive production of cash crops meant that the food crops remained short in supply. Thus, while on one hand the Indian population starved due to the shortage of food grains, the British industries flourished. Fourthly, policy of systematic deindustrialization. This policy allowed free export of raw materials to Britain and free imports of British machine-made products to India. Again, the export of Indian handicrafts were subject to heavy tariffs. This policy of deindustrialization had some negative effects. Firstly, free export of raw materials from India helped the British industries. Secondly, free import of British products to India meant that Indian domestic products faced severe competition from Britain's machine-made products. And finally, heavy duty or heavy tariff on the export of Indian handicrafts products led to the decay of handicraft and the handloom industry in India. The next policy followed by the colonial government is monopoly control over trade. For all practical purposes, Britain maintained a monopoly control over India's foreign trade. More than half of India's foreign trade was restricted to Britain and the rest was allowed with a few other countries. They enforced exports of raw materials to British industries at cheap rates and in turn flooded the Indian market with imports of finished machine-made products. In either ways, the British industries profited. Thus, it can be said that the British rule and their policies led to the gradual collapse of the Indian economy. Or simply speaking, the colonial government left the Indian economy in a backward and stagnant state. Now, it is the time to analyze the major features of Indian economy at the time of independence. As a result of the British rule, the structure of Indian economy radically changed. Their exploitative rule wounded almost every circle of the economy. Consequently, at the time of independence, the Indian economy was in a state of complete deterioration. The points on the screen summarize the main features of Indian economy at the time of independence. Stagnant agriculture, infant industrial sector, regressed foreign trade, comprehensive infrastructure, poor demographic image, unbalanced occupation structure, poverty and indebtedness. Thus, the social and economic challenges put before the country were enormous. Hence, at the time of independence, India confronted the serious challenges of uplifting the economy from the dismal state and reviving its growth. Next class, we will meet with the condition of different sectors of the Indian economy at the time of independence. Thank you.